This recording is supplemental information to the freezer beef pricing worksheet tool that is available. This tool was developed by people at Michigan State University Extension and the University of Wisconsin Extension. The Introduction and Instructions tabs talks about the spreadsheet in general and how if the cell is green, you can enter or change the values based on your own situation. If the cell is gray, enter the values if they're known. The blue cells are for example values, and the yellow cell refers to a value that is generated in a previous section and needs to be entered. There are additional resources on the web that may be helpful from both the University of Wisconsin Extension and the Michigan State University Extension. These links will take you to those resources where you can calculate more detailed cost of production and other things. Under the Pricing Worksheet tab, this is a grain-fed freezer beef pricing spreadsheet. Again, the green cells are values that you can enter or change based on your own situation. The gray cell is to enter if the value is known, and the yellow cell is a value generated earlier in the worksheet. So the cost of producing beef animal example, or the cost of production for this spreadsheet, is very general. It includes things like the initial cost of feeder, or the opportunity cost if it's a home-raised calf, the cost of feed, the transportation and marketing to and from the farm, the yardage including labor, and this was used for the example purposes at 45 cents per head per day. Management costs, including time and other expenses. Direct marketing does include additional time and often other expenses in terms of advertising or other things that might be needed to account for. And then other costs. This could include commission or comparing if you're going to sell it direct marketing and then there is no commission, beef checkoff, death loss, veterinary medical expenses, and any interest on feed or cattle or feed could be included in this others cost. So for example purposes, in September of 2014, the total input cost for one beef type steer, starting at about 600 pounds and finishing around 1,200 pounds, is just over $2,000. Again, it's very important to look at your own cost of production, put your own values in here. This could be much different depending on how far you have to travel to a slaughter facility, what type of feed you're feeding, how much you're paying, or opportunity cost you have for selling an animal. The beef pricing example, comparing the live price and hanging carcass price, is the next section of the worksheet. There's two different categories, column C and column D. Column C is what you use if the live weight or estimated live weight is known, and column D is what you use if you have the carcass weight. If you're trying to determine how you should sell the beef or what the estimated value or cost might be, and you have an estimated or actual live weight at the time of finish, you can put that into cell C17. The dressing percentage estimate is an estimate at that point, and again, dressing percentage will vary depending on the type of animal. Dressing percentage is simply the carcass weight divided by the live weight multiplied by 100, and anytime you see these little red flags in the corner of a cell, you can hover over that cell and the additional information will pop up. But dressing percentages of animals should also include shrink, and that could change the dressing percentage. And the average dressing percentage will be between 62 and 64% for a beef type steer. Holstein or dairy type animals will be much lower at 58 to 60%, and that variable can range from 2 to 5% change depending on if the dressing percentage was used with a hot carcass or a cold carcass weight. If you don't know the live weight, but you're entering the carcass weight given by the processor, it's important to understand if you're getting a hot carcass weight or a cold carcass weight from the processor. Again, that can range from 2 to 5% difference just between the hot carcass and cold carcass weight based on a number of factors, including days of aging, type of chilling, environmental conditions, and other things. So it's important to know if you're getting a hot carcass weight or a cold carcass weight when setting prices. The carcass price is the price agreed upon between the buyer and the seller, or the seller can set the price. In this example, $2.80 per pound of hanging weight is known or is given as an estimate, and that creates a gross carcass price for a 1,200 pound estimated live animal with 63% dressing percentage, or a 756 pound carcass to be just over $2,100. The live weight market price comparison will be determined by simply taking the final carcass price, just over $2,100, divided by the estimated live weight. And so if you don't know the live weight, it can be estimated using dressing percentages like we talked about previously. However, please note that that is an estimate and is only as accurate as the information in terms of live weight animal and or dressing percentage estimate that is inputted into the spreadsheet previously. The current market price in Michigan for choice beef steers is $1.60 per pound at local market venues, sale barns and such. And so this information can be obtained from fed cattle sales, and there is information on the Michigan State University Extension website under the beef program. If you don't have links to that market data regularly, that is updated on the websites of there. But currently it's about $1.60 in Michigan. And so then this worksheet calculates the estimated gross gain or loss compared to selling the animal live. And in this case, it's close to $200 per head if you direct market the animal versus selling it at the local sale barn for $1.60 per pound. It also calculates the estimated profit or loss compared to the input costs, which was in the cost of production section above. And in this case, it's about $87 per head profit. Again, those estimates are only as good as the values that you put in for the green numbers. And so the more accurate those numbers are, the more accurate this estimated gain or loss will be, and that you should account for all costs. The final section of the worksheet talks about product pricing calculation and comparison of buying direct versus retail meat. And so this section can be used with consumers or customers to determine their overall yield, expected, and overall costs that they will incur, or estimated costs if you're projecting how much an animal might cost and how much it might yield. So the carcass weight needs to be entered from above. Again, that can be estimated if you're trying to use this as an estimation and determine what to do with an animal from cell C19. If you know the carcass weight, because the animal's already been processed, then you can take that value from cell D19 where you inputted it previously. The carcass yield will be based on several different things, and again, if you hover over this will show a chart. It depends on how you have the animal processed in terms of how much carcass yield or retail take-home meat there will be. And this can be different for bone-in cuts and for boneless, closely trimmed retail cuts. For a bone-in, that would also include some boneless cuts and ground beef cuts, but for mostly bone-in steaks and roasts and then ground beef, an average way of processing animals, an average beef type steer that would yield a yield grade of 3, again a yield grade of 1 is the heaviest muscled, trimmest carcass, and a yield grade 5 would be the fattest, lightest muscled carcass. So if we go with an average fat thickness, average muscled steer of a yield grade 3, we could expect a carcass yield between that 70 and 74%. So for conservative sake, for the example, we've used 70%. Again, that information will be different if it's a Holstein type steer or if it's boneless retail cuts. If the whole carcass was boneless, it could be expected to be closer to 55% yield. So that yield will vary based on the type of animal as well as how the animal was processed. But for this example, we're going to use 70%. That would give us an estimated pounds of take-home product to the freezer at about 530 pounds. The slaughter cost, an average for our state, could be somewhere around that $55 per head, with a cut and wrap cost of an average of 50 cents per head. Again, these values will change based on your own locker plant or your own processing plant's charges, and you should reflect those charges accurately with what the customer will be actually paying. This calculates then the processing and packaging cost for having the animal slaughtered, cut, wrapped, and frozen, and multiplies that by the carcass weight for the dollars per pound. That gives a total packaged carcass value, or what the customer would have to pay you for the animal, and then also what they would have to pay to have it slaughtered, cut, and wrapped. That can then be used to calculate, based on this estimated take-home pounds of meat, can be used to give the final packaged price per pound of retail product. And if we sold this 1,200 pound steer that had a dressing percentage of 63% and a take-home carcass yield of 70% of that weight, it'd be $4.82. Currently, in August of 2014, which is the most recently published information, USDA reports that all choice beef cut average price is $6.24. That is an all-time high price for that, but those values can be found at this website from USDA, and they are updated monthly. So it's important to use an accurate comparison of current retail prices, and this is a nationwide retail current average price. If that average retail price were used, it would cost just over $3,300 for the same animal. And so that's a savings of $1.42 per pound to the customer if they buy it as a whole animal, a half, or a quarter at that given price up in the example that we've used today of $2.80. And that's a 22, almost 23% savings or value to the consumer to purchase the animal direct at that price. Again, not always will this be a savings depending on the price that you've set, but oftentimes it will be, and it helps to show consumers this information so that they can understand how much they'll be saving. One can explain that $4.82 per pound of final packaged price would be for all cuts, so that would be for ground beef, which might be higher than the average ground beef retail price currently, but that also be for steaks and middle meats, which would be much lower than those average prices. And then also it would be, roasts and all the cuts. So that's $4.82 across the board compared to the average retail price across the board of $6.24. Hopefully this spreadsheet is useful in determining your costs, the estimated profit or loss you can get from a certain price, and or marketing method, comparing direct marketing versus sale barn type settings, and then also using this to estimate some take-home value to your customers. More information is available at the worksheet for the worksheet and for other direct marketing meat at the MSU Beef Extension website under the Direct Marketing and Meat Marketing program website. And those websites were listed in the introductions and instructions section. Thank you.